I had a strange epiphany moment about the gods and God in general. And as we know, there's a strange overlap between nature and God and, law. And I kind of give it away, which is the gods are the laws of nature. Now, I know when you say the laws of nature, people are like, oh, well, duh. Well, it's a little bit more sophisticated than that because what it is each of these call outs are kind of describing a phenomenon of nature or a phenomenon of the constructs of society that just kind of happen by default. So the difference between these laws, which they're calling gods, and actual laws that men make, is the man-made laws actually go against these laws. So the natural laws are a phenomenon that you cannot break because it's built into this earthly simulation. Now, there are people spending night and day and countless hours trying to get around the laws of nature. Most of human society is really about getting around the fundamental primal laws of this whole system. And we do not do it. We do not get around them. They come back around. Nature comes back around. So in that way, you could say that, those are gods, and they are laws. But if you take the human component out of God and you just make it a physics thing, where if gray clouds come, you can rest assured there's going to be rain. And this is because of the physics of the atmosphere, and you can get an idea of how to tell how this so-called law or God is actually going to deliver this rain in a very reliable, consistent manner. And that's the trick, is these gods are consistent because they're built into this world as a permanent construct. Whereas the man-made laws are always going against these laws. They say things like, don't cheat on your wife, or, in the biblical context, they say things like that. But reality is different. And this is vice versa. I just use it as an example. But, these laws cannot be broken. What I'm calling laws, which is these gods, these cannot be broken. And the farce is that mankind thinks that he can break these laws of nature. And he cannot. And that's the dilemma. That's man's dilemma, the prisoner's dilemma. We're prisoner of natural laws, and the laws are coming from division created by creation, in my opinion. So I have a thing I call survival divides to survive. And so you have nothing, and then you have something. And between those two elements, you have everything. Because that's the main polarity contrast that's at war that makes reality, in my opinion. So even though it seems like things are very sophisticated, they're built along this long domino of things. And that long domino of things is the law. It's the real law. Even the man-made law has some degree of realness to it because it's part of the domino. But it easily breaks away by this world's laws. And so when we're talking about laws of weather and geophysics anomalies, those are laws. And so that's why nowadays they're even manipulating some of those things. So that complicates this issue. But the base reality consists of these God's laws. And I think what the big confusion over religion is, and certain religions, is that they are what they called gods are actually just the laws of nature. So they were pointing out phenomenon in nature and saying, the God of rain, God of fire, God of war, da-da-da. All your emotions, they don't go away, ever. And so you have a range of emotions, and they loop in this cycle, which I called a long time ago the cycle of emotion, because I noticed, eventually to keep this world interesting, you don't just have one emotion that goes on and off and on and off and on and off, or just, stays on. You have many emotions, which is kind of like a long stream of, the spectrum, and it just kind of travels along the spectrum. So, those emotions could be considered gods, where you have the God of happiness, the God of rage, the God of sadness, my God. Anyways, so in that way, you can call things that are like really repeatable laws, those are the gods of the ancient times. So that's why you can have a cat god, and you can have a dog god, and you can have these celestial gods, and you can have the sun god, and you can have the moon god, because they're repeatable phenomenon, and they also have these artifacts. And the interpretation of what those artifacts did, that's where all this writing comes from. Now, what happened is that got manifested into biblical stuff. So they took that phenomenon that happens by the physics of the world and the physics of biology, and they transcribed this kind of human consciousness component into those actual laws. So we have like an observation of something, looking at it from one vantage point, and we're saying, well, then that's telling us to behave like this, that's telling us to behave like that, etc., etc. Now it got even further twisted and twisted and twisted from there. But the basic point of this is to illustrate that I have a suspicion they were just pointing out phenomenons of reality, and that from a range of things. And these are repeatable things, that's why they call them gods, but really they're laws of the earth that are impossible to break, because they're just something that exists. It's like saying light and dark. Which one is better? You can't say that. There's no point to saying that. But what you do know is that it's going to be consistently, there's going to be a light or there's going to be a dark. And there's going to be, all these things that happen to people. There's going to be hunger, or there's going to be, feast. So it's in a cycle as well. But the core construct of reality starts with zero and ends up with this, stimulating thing. And so it's funny that the structure of human society is similar to that, which is there's three components. You have a mass class, you have a private class, and you have an upper class that serve the private class and oppress the mass class. And so just like in nature, there's a nothing, which is no existence. There's something, which is every possible thing in existence. And then there's the middle ground, which is reality. So that's it for this. I think you get the point of what I'm getting at, which is gods are just laws, is all I'm trying to say with this. But they're not man's laws.